In the quiet suburban neighborhood where Scene lived, nights were typically serene, disturbed only by the occasional bark of a distant dog or the rustling of leaves in the gentle night breeze. Scene, a young graphic designer who had recently moved into his first home, cherished the tranquility after long hours of work. His house, a modest two-story building with a small garden at the front, was his sanctuary. One night, as Scene was working late in his home office, the peace was shattered. It started subtly, a faint scraping sound at the back door, so slight that Scene initially dismissed it as the wind. However, the noise persisted, growing into a clear and deliberate tampering with the lock. His heart raced as the realization dawned on him. Someone was trying to break into his home. Scene's immediate reaction was to dial 911, but as he reached for his phone, he discovered it was not on his desk where he usually left it. Frantically searching, he remembered he had left it charging in the kitchen, downstairs. The intruder's efforts at the back door grew more aggressive, and Scene knew he had to act quickly. He quietly crept out of his office, moving stealthily towards the staircase, his ears straining for any sound that would indicate the intruder had made it inside. As he reached the stairs, the unmistakable sound of the door finally giving way sent a shiver down his spine. Panic set in, but Scene forced himself to remain calm and think. He retreated back to his office, locking the door behind him, and scanned the room for anything he could use as a weapon. His eyes landed on a heavy trophy he had won for a design competition, the best defense he could muster on short notice. Meanwhile, the intruder, having successfully breached the home, began to move with more confidence, evidently unaware of Scene's presence. Muffled footsteps indicated they were now inside, methodically searching the house. Scene could hear drawers being opened and items shuffled around. It was clear this was no random burglary. The intruder seemed to be searching for something specific. With the police still unaware of his predicament, Scene realized he had to do more than just hide. He needed to gather evidence without confronting the intruder directly. He quietly unlocked his office door and peered out, his phone's camera at the ready to capture any footage that might help identify the trespasser. What he saw next chilled him to the bone. The intruder was not the masked marauder one might expect, but appeared to be a woman, moving with a familiarity that suggested she knew exactly where to look. Her movements were efficient, bypassing the usual targets of a home invasion. Scene captured what footage he could before retreating, puzzled by the intruder's motives. Scene's mind raced, trying to piece together who this woman could be and what she could possibly want from his home. He had lived a relatively private life, with few acquaintances in town and nothing of apparent value to someone from his past. The situation took a darker turn when he heard her making a call, her voice low but clear enough for Scene to catch snippets of a conversation that hinted at a deeper intrigue. She mentioned a package that needed to be found before they did, suggesting not only that she was not working alone, but also that Scene had unwittingly found himself in the middle of something far more complex than a simple burglary. Hiding in his office, Scene felt trapped, but also driven by a newfound resolve to uncover the truth behind this invasion. As the woman continued her search, Scene devised a plan not just to escape his immediate danger, but to confront this mystery head-on. Little did he know, the night was about to reveal secrets that would change his life forever. Scene's resolve hardened as he listened to the intruder's footsteps descending further into the house. He realized the element of surprise was his greatest asset. Moving silently, he edged closer to the staircase, trophy in hand, ready to defend his home. But as he prepared to confront the intruder, a sudden realization stopped him. If this woman was searching for something specific, something she believed to be in his house, perhaps he could negotiate or learn more before resorting to violence. With cautious steps, Scene descended the stairs, finding the woman in his living room, rummaging through a box of old photographs and documents he had yet to unpack. "Looking for this," he said, more bravely than he felt, holding up an innocuous-looking envelope he had grabbed from his office. It was a bluff. The envelope contained nothing but old utility bills, but it caught her attention. The woman spun around, her expression one of surprise and caution. "Who are you?" she demanded, her stance defensive yet not overtly threatening. "I could ask you the same," Scene retorted, maintaining a safe distance. "You're searching for something in my house. Maybe we can make a deal." Her eyes narrowed, assessing him for a moment before she sighed, lowering her guard slightly. "I'm looking for a hard drive," she confessed. "It contains information that's important to me and some other parties. I was told it would be here, but I'm starting to think I was misinformed." Scene, still holding the envelope as a decoy, saw an opportunity. "What's on the hard drive?" he asked, curiosity piqued despite the danger. The woman hesitated, then seemed to come to a decision. "Evidence. Evidence of corruption within a company I used to work for. I thought I could expose them, but it's turned into this." She gestured around at the disarray of Scene's living room. A silence fell between them, heavy with the gravity of her words. Scene realized the break-in wasn't a simple act of theft or malice, but a desperate attempt to right a wrong. "I haven't found any hard drives," he said honestly, "but you've made quite a mess. Help me clean up, and we'll look together." Surprisingly, the woman agreed. As they tidied the room, Scene learned her name was Alex, and the more they talked, the more he felt compelled to help her cause. Together, they searched the house but found nothing resembling the hard drive Alex sought. As dawn broke, Scene had a thought. The previous owner, he mused aloud. Maybe they left it behind. "I haven't met them, but I have their contact info. We could ask." With nothing to lose, Scene and Alex reached out to the previous owner, a reclusive older man who, upon hearing their story, admitted to finding a hard drive in the attic shortly before he moved out. Fearing its contents, he had kept it hidden in a safe deposit box at the bank, untouched. The reunion was arranged, and the hard drive was handed over to Alex, who was immensely grateful. She promised to get the evidence to the right people, and in a turn of events that felt almost too good to be true, she did. The company was exposed, leading to arrests and reforms within the industry. As for Scene, his life returned to its quiet routine, but not entirely. He had helped expose a significant corruption scandal, making a friend in the process. Alex stayed in touch, and Scene found himself more involved in local activism, driven by a newfound sense of justice. Gilbert had always prided himself on his sense of security. Living in a modest, yet comfortably secluded home on the outskirts of a bustling town, he cherished his privacy and the quietude it offered. However, his tranquil life was about to be shattered in a way he could never have imagined. It was a stormy night when the terror began. The wind howled like a pack of wolves on the hunt, and the rain beat against the windows with the fury of 1,000 drums. Gilbert, a widower in his late 50s, found solace in a book by the fireplace, the flames casting dancing shadows across the room. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the house, snapping Gilbert out of his reverie. Assuming the storm had knocked a tree into his home, he grabbed a flashlight and cautiously made his way towards the source of the noise. What he found chilled him to the bone. The back door, which he was certain had been locked, stood ajar, swinging violently in the wind. Heart pounding, Gilbert searched the ground floor, finding nothing amiss except for the open door. He convinced himself it was the wind's doing, securing the door once more. Yet, as he made his way back to the living room, an unsettling feeling gnawed at him. The kind of primal instinct that screamed something was terribly wrong. The power flickered, then died, plunging the house into darkness. The storm's intensity seemed to mock his vulnerability, and for the first time in his life, Gilbert felt truly alone and defenseless. Deciding against sitting in the dark, he resolved to go to bed, hoping the morning light would bring normalcy. But sleep eluded him. Each creak and groan of the house set his nerves on edge. Then, in the depths of the night, a faint sound reached his ears, almost imperceptible, but unmistakably the sound of footsteps. They were slow, deliberate, moving with a purpose through the lower level of his house. Gilbert's mind raced. Was it his imagination, fueled by the storm and the earlier scare, or was there truly someone in his home? Gripped by a fear he hadn't felt since he was a child, he reached for the phone, only to remember the power outage likely rendered his landline useless. With no other choice, he crept from his bed, gripping the flashlight like a lifeline. The stairs creaked under his weight, betraying his movement. As he reached the ground floor, the flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing nothing but the familiar furnishings of his home. Then, as he turned towards the kitchen, the light fell upon a figure, a person cloaked in darkness, their features obscured. Gilbert's heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. The intruder moved first, lunging towards him with a ferocity that belied their earlier caution. Gilbert, driven by pure instinct, dodged to the side, the flashlight beam wildly sweeping across the room as he stumbled. What ensued was a deadly dance of cat and mouse. Gilbert, realizing he was no match in a direct confrontation, used his knowledge of the house to evade the intruder, all the while desperately trying to find a way to call for help. As the night wore on, it became clear that this was no ordinary burglary. The intruder seemed to know exactly where to look, bypassing valuables in favor of rummaging through personal documents, photographs, and even Gilbert's computer. As dawn approached, bringing with it a deceptive peace, Gilbert's desperation grew. The intruder was relentless, methodically searching every inch of the house. Gilbert knew he had to act, to reclaim his sanctuary or lose everything. Recalling an old disconnected cell phone in a junk drawer, Gilbert saw his chance. He needed to create a diversion, to draw the intruder away long enough to grab the phone and hopefully power it on. He remembered the old grandfather clock in the living room, a family heirloom that hadn't worked in years. If he could set it off, its sudden chime would surely startle the intruder. With painstaking care, Gilbert made his way to the living room, avoiding detection, and set the clock's alarm. As the clock struck, its loud, unexpected chime echoed through the silent house. The intruder, caught off guard, rushed towards the sound. Gilbert seized the moment, darting to the kitchen to retrieve the phone. His hand shook as he willed the device to life, praying it had enough residual charge for a call. The phone flickered on, and Gilbert dialed 911, whispering his situation and address. The dispatcher assured him help was on the way, urging him to stay hidden. As he waited, Gilbert realized the intruder had become suspiciously quiet. The storm had passed, and the first light of dawn cast a soft glow through the windows, betraying the destruction the night had wrought. Furniture was overturned, drawers emptied, and personal belongings strewn about. Then, in the silence, a voice called out, "Gilbert, I know you're here. It doesn't have to end badly." The familiarity of the voice struck Gilbert. It was laced with a venomous hate he couldn't place, but he recognized it. As he cautiously peered from his hiding spot, the intruder stepped into the light. It was Michael, a former business partner Gilbert had known for decades. Their partnership had ended bitterly years ago over accusations of embezzlement and betrayal, accusations that had cost Michael his career and reputation. Gilbert had never believed Michael capable of such deceit, but the evidence had been overwhelming. "Michael, why?" Gilbert's voice was a mix of confusion and betrayal. "You ruined my life. Gilbert, I lost everything because of you." Michael's voice was cold, his eyes filled with a haunting desperation. Gilbert realized then that Michael believed he had hidden evidence of his innocence, evidence that Gilbert had either overlooked or never found. "I don't have what you're looking for, Michael. It was all laid bare during the trial. You have to believe me," Gilbert pleaded, stepping into the open, making himself vulnerable in a gesture of peace. The standoff was interrupted by the sound of sirens growing closer. Michael's resolve faltered, his gaze shifting between Gilbert and the window. In a final act of desperation, Michael charged at Gilbert, just as the police burst through the door. A struggle ensued, but it was quickly ended by the officers, who subdued Michael and took him into custody. The aftermath of the home invasion left Gilbert's life and home in disarray. Yet, amidst the chaos, a sense of clarity emerged. The ordeal had unearthed a well of resilience and courage he hadn't known he possessed. In the weeks that followed, Gilbert worked to rebuild his life, repairing the physical damage to his home and the emotional scars within himself. The community rallied around him, offering support and solace. As for Michael, the truth of what happened all those years ago remained buried, a relic of a past that both men wished to forget. Gilbert realized that some wounds never fully heal, but in facing them, one finds the strength to move forward.